back to Page to Picture, the podcast where books come to life on screen and in conversation. I am your host, Kim, and today I am excited to spotlight an author whose debut novel has been keeping readers on the edge of their seats. Piper L. White is an author of gory girls and twisty page turners from North Carolina. She holds a BFA in creative writing from UNC Wilmington, along with a certificate in publishing and a minor in women and gender studies. Her work has appeared in several literary magazines, and in 2025, she released her debut novel, All Dead Girls Lie, a sapphic YA thriller full of secrets, suspense, and shocking twists. So let's get into it and learn more about Piper L. White and her novel, All Dead Girls Lie. Like I mentioned, the book is called All Dead Girls Lie, and here is the blurb. 16-year-old Quinn is a liar, but she isn't a murderer. When the sleepy town of Boiling Springs, North Carolina, is roused by the murder of a local teen, Quinn is thrust into a life of danger, disrupting her normally unnoticeable existence. As Quinn becomes romantically involved with Gilly, the best friend of the dead girl and daughter of the town sheriff, the situation becomes even more complicated. Despite the lurk of danger, Quinn tries to keep her mind on her new and exciting relationship. When another one of Gilly's friends turns up dead and more clues start to pile up, Quinn can't help but start her own investigation. With everyone in town lying to each other, the suspect list grows. To make matters even more complicated, Quinn feels the killer could be closer to home than anyone suspects. It is a new sapphic YA thriller for fans of Heathers and A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Okay, Piper, so we believe that every author has an origin story, and we want to know yours. How did you become an author?
Hello, everybody. My name is Piper L. White, and I am a mystery and thriller author from North Carolina. My debut novel, All Dead Girls Lie, which is a sapphic young adult thriller taking place during Halloween 2004, came out about a year ago. I would say my origin story began when I was very young. I would say elementary school age. Beforehand, I was a reader always. The Velveteen Rabbit was my favorite children's book, and it's the one I remember first picking up when I became conscious of how to read. And from there, I just started writing stories. I would take printer paper from my dad and I would fold them into little books, and then I would mostly write about my stuffed animal cat Candy when I was a kid because she was my everyday companion, best friend, and I got a lot of creative stories about her, especially one where she went to Paris and Italy and all of that. And from there, things sort of grew when I went into middle school and discovered Wattpad. I would write fan fiction about the Final Destination films and other tributes from the Hunger Games because I was curious about their stories, and it got me thinking about my own writing style as I wrote these things and grew my audience on Wattpad. And then after that brief period of time, I remember my aunt asking me what I wanted to, be when I was older, and we talked about this, I think, right before I went into high school, and I was like, "I don't know, I know I love being creative, I love writing." She was like, "Well, all these books that you read, you can be an author." And then that is when it clicked to me, like, "Oh, I can be an author." And so in high school, I took my first creative writing class my freshman year, and I think also the year beforehand in 8th grade, my social studies teacher had called out roll, and he called out my whole name, Piper Lee White, and he went, "Piper Lee White. That sounds like an author's name." And so that is when I jumped into the rabbit hole and started taking my writing seriously. I went to the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and got my BFA in creative writing along with a certificate in book publishing, and started drafting what would become my debut novel, I think back in 2021, worked on it until 2024 when I got my offer of representation from my publisher. And now the rest is history, and I am here as an author, writing books. I have an agent now, and we're working on some things together that I'm going to keep secret for now.
Let's talk about your 2025 book, All Dead Girls Lie. What was the very first spark for your book?
The very first spark of All Dead Girls Lie came to me in 2021 when I was watching Cruel Summer on Freeform. It's a young adult TV show mystery that takes place during the 90s, and it was just so brilliant and well done, and the writing was great, the plot twists were great, how everything wrapped up and even left on kind of a plot twist to leave that lingering feeling of like, "Wait a minute, let me go back and go through all these clues again to how we get to this." Everything about it was perfect. So, TV show rec, it's on Hulu. But yeah, I was still in my undergrad for creative writing, and I was watching this show, and I was like, wow, like, I just can't get over the writing and the story and the storytelling. Storytelling is a huge thing for me. And I had written a couple novels beforehand. They were more contemporary. I even tried a fantasy, and just none of them were for me, and I didn't really click with what I was writing. But I really knew I wanted to get serious about writing novels because being an author has been what I have wanted my entire life. And so I was sitting there watching, and I was like, if I love to read and watch mysteries and thrillers so much, then why don't I just write one myself? So from there, I started thinking about okay, I wanted to have some nostalgia to it. I wanted it to be very spooky, and I wanted to have some plot twists and some red herrings because I love a red herring, and I definitely wanted it to take place in the South to pay homage to like my hometown in North Carolina, and that be my first book.
I just have to say real quick, Cruel Summer, 100% agree. It is probably one of my favorite shows that I had watched in a really long time that has to do with like mystery, murder, teens. Like it is so good. And I think it's like honestly forgotten. Like I truly forgot about it until you just mentioned it. And now I want to go and like rewatch it. That is such a good show. And now that you say it, like I totally see the inspiration. Definitely check it out. I 100% agree with you. Such a great show on Hulu. Watch it. Watch a Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Watch Heather's, and then read this book, and then you're gonna just like fall in love with everything. The title alone is so intriguing. When did you know it was the perfect title for the story?
So for the title, I actually for the longest time had just called this book Thriller. I didn't know what I wanted to have the title be because the story I didn't wanna be too niche, and then people be like, "Okay, I see what this is about." But I also didn't just wanna be so vague, and so one night when I had finished my first draft, I was like, "Okay, before I edit this book, I want to set down a title." And so I went back and forth with one of my writer friends in undergrad, and I was like, "Hey, I am struggling so hard figuring out a title for this book." And so me and her, we kind of shuffled through the themes. There's like the girlhood, there's gossip, of course, there's murder. And we were just kind of playing on like lies. Lies, especially because there's an unreliable narrator, and there's also an unreliable author who writes the unreliable narrator. And so we were like, okay, well, all girls lie. In high school, that's like the big thing of like, oh my God, you're lying, you're lying. And that kinda tied in with, like, the gossip that's going on and the drama. And so then I was like, "Okay, well, what about all dead girls lie?" And I could put dead in parentheses, so it's, like, a play on, like, the all girls lie stuff. And so she liked it, and I was like, "I feel really connected to this." And so from there, it was all dead girls lie.
Without any spoilers, can you tell our listeners what they can expect when they pick up All Dead Girls Lie?
I would say that people, when they pick up All Dead Girls Lie, can expect a lot of nostalgia, especially surrounding, like, Halloween and fall. But also, don't trust a single person. In fact, don't even trust me as the author because there are lies sprinkled out throughout that whole book. And there might even be some lies in the synopsis on the back cover.
Okay. I just read the synopsis to everybody in the very beginning of this episode. So after what Piper just said if you want to rewind it and listen back to the synopsis or pick up her book, read the synopsis, dissect it, see if you can figure it out. And even better, take the time and actually read the book and try to solve the mystery yourself. Thrillers are all about twists and secrets. What was the biggest challenge in keeping readers guessing?
I think my biggest challenge in keeping readers guessing was when I took it from a reader's lens, because as I said, I love to read mysteries and thrillers. Those are my favorite. I tend to be able to guess who the killer is before I even get halfway through the book. And that's just because of how much I read them, I think. And so I was like, okay, well, what if I was just a reader picking this up? Are they going to be able to guess who it is? And I kind of went 50-50 on it. And feedback that I've gotten was kind of also pretty much 50-50 with the plot twist. But with that being said, it was more so like, okay, well, if someone guesses who the killer is or killers, we don't know because no spoilers here. I wanted it to be a thing of like, okay, even though I guessed who it was, seeing how we got here and seeing all the mysteries and the clues, that was intriguing as well, even if they could pretty much guess what the plot twist is. So, getting over that hump, I feel like was a big challenge because this was also my first mystery that I've ever written, but I've talked about it with some readers and they thought I did a good job with it, so I'm gonna leave it to the readers on this one.
Did you know the ending from the start, or did it have to reveal itself as you wrote the book?
So I actually knew the beginning, before I even plotted any characters, really. I just knew this is what I wanted to happen. I didn't have names for them. I didn't really have anything else. I was just like, the ending is going to be like this with these people. I'll figure out their names as I'm writing. And that was going to be the big plot twist. But as I was writing, I wanted to play more with the lies, like I said. And so then I came up with the epilogue. And there's some lies in the epilogue that my friends also talk to me about. And it's really fun discussing with them because I never tell them anything. And I'm always like, I don't know. That could be it or it could not be it. And they roll their eyes. And it's so fun to mess with them. And so I did halfway kind of have the ending, but then the epilogue sprung up to play along with the lies. And that's to me the true ending of the book.
What themes or messages were most important for you to explore in this book?
The most important themes and messages for me to explore were the concepts of girlhood, especially in relation to like the high schoolness of it all, where it's like our hormones are driving us crazy, school is driving us crazy, there's drama in the friend group, there's drama with relationships, all of it. And I wanted to have that still be a theme while also not being the overarching plot since this is a murder mystery. And another thing that was important for me to explore was also the concept of queerness in this book because it takes place in 2004 and like I was 4 years old, but I know like queerness wasn't as open as it is today. However, for my own identity as a queer woman, I wanted to make it a thing of like these two my characters are queer. Yes, it's 2004, but they're queer and they're cool about it. And even if that's not the most realistic for the time, that's just what I wanted to do in my book because again, the big thing is the murder mystery and everything else, yes, they're explored, but they're explored in a way of like it's normal. That's how it is and it's normal and that's what I wanted to do.
Because we are a podcast that loves books and adaptations, we have to ask. If All Dead Girls Lie were adapted for film or television, do you have any dream casting choices?
So, if All Dead Girls Lie were adapted, I definitely I have casting that I saw in my head, but I'm not necessarily attached to them because whenever it comes to adaptations, I'm like, whoever can play the part the best and can act their asses off for it, that's who should be the person. And that's how I am for this book. Like, if it gets adapted, whoever acts their ass off, they get it. They go for it. But when I was writing, it's easier for me as a reader to sort of take a character and place them to, like, a certain actor or actress. It doesn't happen like that all the time with books, but for mysteries and thrillers, when it comes to, like, young adult stuff, I'm like, "Okay, I can kinda see people who I, like, would view as this character." And so for Quinn, my main character, I saw Sadie Sink, but I saw her specifically as Max Mayfield in season 4 of Stranger Things, like, walking around with her Walkman and her, like, cool jackets and everything, and that's exactly how I pictured Quinn. And so I would love to see Sadie Sink be Quinn if this is ever adapted. I think she fits the description. I think she could act her because Quinn has some similarities to Max Mayfield, who is one of my favorite characters in Stranger Things.
Piper, oh my gosh, Sadie Sink as Quinn is a must. I can totally see it, especially your vision of Sadie during her Stranger Things character as Max, like 1,000%. And as always, we will do the due diligence and tag the appropriate people to get this going because we need it on our screens right now.
For Gilly, I definitely saw Hannah Miller from Fear Street, especially when she is right there at the bonfire that they're having when they're in the woods. It's like towards the beginning of the 3rd one, 1666. And but then I also kinda saw her as Samantha Fraser from 1994, I believe it is, because the Fear Street is a trilogy. But definitely was watching that when it came out and editing my book. I was like, "Yeah, I see this. I see these characters in my book." Um, Other than that, I kinda just picture different characters from other movies. Like, for Beck, I pictured Janice from the newest Mean Girls, which I think it came out in 2024 or 2025, can't remember. And then for Harry, I pictured him as Reggie from Riverdale, and then John Willis, I pictured him as Patrick Wilson, but in a cop uniform, and I just, like, it's these random little characters or actors that just pop into my head, and then I just put them in the outfits that my characters would be wearing.
You guys, is this not the best casting you've ever heard? Like, we need this now. We will tag the appropriate people, the actors. We will tag Hulu. We will tag Prime. We will tag Netflix. Like, whoever we need to tag, we will tag them. Amazon Prime is on a booked adaptation, like, high right now. So let's throw in like a thriller in that rotation. Love the casting, need it today. And what is one scene that's absolutely a must? It has to make it into the adaptation.
I think one scene that absolutely would have to make it to the adaptation is when they're at the school for the corn maze. I think that whole scene is just so nostalgically high school, and you have, like, the fake corn maze in the middle of the football field, and you have all the stands selling the watered down hot chocolate and the candy apples, and then you have everyone running around, like, going to the bathroom and mingling in the bathroom and then going to the snack stand and just the parking lot, walking up to the football field, and just everyone's walking around, they're like, "I need to go find this person," or, "I need to find this person," and then there's some drama, there's some gossip, and I think it takes the 2 things that I really wanted of, like, the high schoolness and the girlhood and then the nostalgic Halloween, and it just mashes it into one, and I would really, really love to see how that scene would play out, like, in a movie or a TV show.
If you could pick the soundtrack song for the trailer, what would it be?
The soundtrack song that I would pick for the trailer would be My Happy Ending by Avril Lavigne. Ever since I started writing this book, I was like, that's the song of the book. I think the lyrics mesh well with it. I think the vibes of like the early 2000s with Avril Lavigne, I think it just comes together. And that song is so All Dead Girls Lie and just kind of like I don't know how music works like this because 'cause I'm a writer, but, like, just toning it down a little bit to make it a little darker, and then maybe putting, like, some crackly static over it to make it sound like a CD or something. I don't know. I just think it would be really, really cool for that to be the backtrack for it.
What do you hope readers take away after finishing this book?
What I hope that readers take away after finishing my book is, 1, be careful who you trust, because like I said, there's liars scattered all throughout this book, but also that their high school experience with, like, the drama and the gossip and everything is just such a blip in time, and you'll look back on it and be like, "Wow, it really was never as serious as I thought it was in that moment," even though when you're in high school, you feel like this is it, this is the world, it's the end of the world and everything like that. But also, I want young writers to read this book and be like, "Wow, I can write whatever I want to, and I also can accomplish this dream." Because when I was growing up knowing I wanted to be an author, there was, like, talk from people like, "That's really hard to get into. It's a really hard business to be in." And it's like, to me, yes, it is a business, but it's also that's my art form. Like, this is my art, and if no one was reading it, I would still be doing it because I love the written word, and I love writing, and I love making up worlds of my own. And I would also hear like, "Oh, well, that this is the trends right now. This is what publishing's looking for." And I was like, "Well, I don't wanna put myself into a box. So I'm gonna write my silly, campy sleepover slasher and continue to do so, because even if I just had one reader, that would be enough for me, because that one reader would be like, "Wow, I loved this book. This book inspired me." And when I'm doing book signings and I see young tweens coming in with my book in their hand with their parents and just, like, telling me how much they liked my book, and then a couple I've met too, they're like, "I wanna do this when I'm older. I wanna be a writer. I wanna be an author." And I sit there and I talk to them. I'm like, "Artist to artist, like, you can do this. You can do whatever you set your mind to. And if you wanna be an author, go for it and write what you want to write. It's not about what other people want, because you will find your scene and you will find your readers." Man, it's like I was that little girl once going up to authors, and now it's like an interconnected web, and it's cute seeing how time plays out like that.
And what can readers expect next from you?
So, I have some projects up my sleeve. I definitely am going to continue writing some young adult mysteries and thrillers, but I am going to grad school, and there I definitely want to focus on writing a short story collection, because short stories, that's where I got my start truly in doing this seriously, because when I was in undergrad and focusing on fiction, I was focusing on these short stories and I was submitting them to magazines, getting published that way, and that's kind of how I first got my foot in the door to it all. So I really want to go back and explore that and explore some concepts of womanhood through fairy tales and through horror. But in the realm of All Dead Girls Lie, there's definitely some young adult thrillers that I am working on, and I'm working on some things with my agent. So stay tuned.
Where can listeners find you? Social media, website, future events, and where can they get your books?
You can find all my news and all my ramblings on my social media. I am at Piper L. White on Instagram and TikTok. My website is piperwhitewrites.com. And then when you listen to this podcast, I will be at StokerCon, and I'm very excited to go. It is my first time going as an author, and I will be on a couple of panels and doing the mass author signing. But yeah, anytime I have an event or any news, I'm always posting it on Instagram first. TikTok is where I do silly little trends for my book, and then my website is kind of just where I'll put what books I have out or what writing. But if you want to stay truly up to date on all my news, Instagram is the place because I love it over there. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening and for reading my debut novel. I really appreciate it. I know my main characters appreciate it. And yeah, thank you so much.
Piper, thank you so much for talking with us and giving us all this back information on your story, All Dead Girls Lie. I am a sucker for thriller, small town thrillers, investigations. Heather's is probably one of my all-time favorite movies, and I also did enjoy A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. So I think that those are two great descriptions for this book. I truly loved it. I think it's amazing. Definitely a 5 out of 5 for me. I would read it over and over again, and I cannot wait to see what else you have coming down the pipeline. So please do not stop writing these thriller novels. It is like your bread and butter. It is good. It is great. I love the twists and the turns. Such a great book. Everybody, please check it out. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at Official Page to Picture for book to screen updates, behind the scenes content, and more author interviews. Until next time, everybody. Bye.